I'm sure you've all heard of the term called HMO. This stands for House of Multiple Occupants. And in this video, I'm going to give you all of the information that you need to know if you are looking to invest in HMOs. Let's get straight into it. So first things first, what is a HMO? HMO stands for House of Multiple Occupants, and it's basically where you take a house, a normal residential family house, and you rent it out on a room by room basis. Now you've got all different types of HMO tenants that live in these HMO properties. For example, you've got working professional HMOs. This is where you rent your HMO to like a normal working class people that have regular jobs and they need an affordable place to live. Another tenant type is social housing. So you rent the HMO to a social housing provider. They will get in different tenant types such as refugees or people that need temporary accommodation. So another way is students. Students are a typical tenant type for lots of HMO landlords. So those are the three main tenant types. There are some others too, but those are the three main tenant types. So why do people want to invest in HMOs? Well, to be honest with you, for myself, HMOs, they changed my life. They actually helped me to escape the 9-to-5 job that I was in that I hated, because the cash flow that you can make from HMOs, the monthly profit that you can make is incredible, guys. And that's what initially attracted me to it. I've gone a bit extreme. I'm now on my 26th HMO and I'm still buying a lot more as well. But I honestly love them. And when I started out in property, I kind of thought to myself, right, do I want to own 30 single let family homes and make say 200, 300, 400 pounds off each one? Or why don't I just do HMOs where I can earn say upwards of £1,000 profit per month from each house? So that was my mindset, and I'm so glad I realized that quite early on, because what I told myself was, I'm gonna try and master HMOs. I wanna learn all of the tips, the tricks. I wanna learn everything about HMOs, guys. So stay tuned until the end of this video, because by the end of the vid, you're gonna have more clarity on exactly how to invest in HMOs. Now, another reason on why people want to invest into HMOs rather than investing into family houses is because with a HMO, you typically have 6 people, or maybe just 4 people, 5 people, sometimes 6, but you can get bigger HMOs too. Like I've got some 7 beds, some 8 beds. So let's just keep it simple and say you've got 6 people, they're all paying you rent every single month, they've all got their individual rooms, and they're all paying say £450 a month. Well, guess what, guys? If someone moves out, you will still be making profit, okay? Now, with a family let, if you take a property and you rent it to a family, say for example, they stop paying rent or they just move out and don't let you know, guess what? You've then lost money because you've still got to pay your mortgage. So essentially you are losing money. Now with HMOs, it's much harder to lose money. It's very rare that I will take a loss on any of my HMOs in a month. It's very rare. So that is a big benefit of HMOs, is the fact that it's kind of de-risking it for yourself, because if you're going to invest a lot of money into buying a property, you want to make sure that every month you're making profit and you're making good money. Now, my favorite type of HMO is my social housing HMO, because every single month I get paid the exact same amount. It doesn't fluctuate. Whereas with my working professional HMOs, it does slightly fluctuate, because say for example, someone moves out and then another person moves back in, it will affect your monthly income. However, in general, I love my working professional HMOs. They pay me very well. And my first few years in property, that was all I did, working professional HMOs. Now I've moved on to social housing. The first thing you need to know is HMO licensing. It's important that you understand this, guys, because with HMO licensing, if you don't understand how it works, you can land yourself into some serious shit with the council, okay? So my main thing here, guys, is if you're ever unsure, email the council, give them a call and ask them the question, okay? You do not need to be scared of HMO licensing. They are here to help you. They're not allowed to just say, oh no, go away, I don't really want to help you. They have to help you. Legally, that's their job. Okay, so all of this hard-working taxpayers' money, we're paying HMO licensing team to help us landlords to actually make sure we're providing safe accommodation for our tenants. Okay, so they're here to help. Don't be scared of them. Now, how it works with HMO licensing is it's different to planning permission. Okay, so you've got 2 separate things here, guys. You've got HMO licensing and you've got HMO planning permission. A HMO license is basically an official document that the council will provide you with once they have basically seen that you are meeting all of their requirements and the property is done to a compliant HMO standard. So So once they're satisfied, once they're happy, they will issue you with an official document which says this property has been granted with a HMO license. It will have your name on it, it will have the property address on it. You can get a HMO manager to do it in their name, or you can do it in your name. So to be eligible for a HMO license, you have to be, in the council's eyes, a fit and proper person. Now this means you can't have a criminal record, okay? So if you do have like an extensive criminal record, then you won't be able to get a HMO license in your name. But let's just presume you don't have a criminal record and you want to get a HMO license. This is what the process looks like. When you buy the property, you've renovated it, you can get the council, the HMO licensing department, they'll come out, someone from the team will come out, and they'll basically help you to make sure that your HMO is compliant and up to their standard. Sometimes they'll ask you to pay them, say £100, £200 to come out and visit the HMO. But if you put your foot down and say to them, look, I don't really want to pay that, like that's not very fair. I just want you to come out to help me to make sure I don't do it wrong. Then typically guys, they will come out for free. If you are doing your first few HMOs, then I would advise you get them out throughout the process just to make sure they're happy with what you're doing and you're doing it to the standard that they want. With HMO licensing, you will only get the license granted if the property is compliant. So things you need to install into the property: FD30 fire doors, you're going to need smoke alarms, you're going to need carbon monoxide detectors, you're going to need signage. For example, this is where the fire exit is, like fire exit signs. You're going to need emergency lighting in some cases. So there are quite a few things that you're going to need to put into your HMOs. Also, another thing is on the doors, you're going to need the intermittent strips on the fire doors. Now, I don't know how you say that word. I've never known how you say it. That's my dyslexia coming out right there. But guys, without complicating it too much, all you need to do, guys, is go onto the council's website and it'll have all of the rules and regulations laid out for you on exactly what you need to put into this HMO that you're doing. Now, keep in mind, each council is completely different, guys. So don't just think that if you've done a HMO in Nottingham City Council, that it's going to be the same if you do one in Mansfield District Council. Mansfield is still in Nottingham, guys, but they've got completely different regulations. They're very similar, but they do have some differences, guys. So the main thing to do is wherever you're doing a HMO conversion is to check that specific council's requirements. Now, HMO license, to apply for it, it costs you around £700, £800 to get the license, but you can actually pay it in two different payments. So you normally pay the first tranche, which is roughly around £500, £600, and then you will just pay the rest once they've issued you with the license. Or you can just pay in full. To get a license, it depends how busy the council are and how busy the HMO department are in that council on how quick you would actually get the license. One rule of thumb I like to say is that you can still remortgage your property when it doesn't even have the HMO license on it yet. As long as you've applied for the HMO license, most lenders will be happy for you to still get your HMO valuation and still remortgage the property, because they know that the councils are behind in a lot of areas. In some areas, when you apply for a HMO license, the council will come out straight away, inspect, they'll give you the license. Sometimes you apply for a license and they will actually not inspect the property, they'll just look at the documents you provided and they'll give you the license straight away. Stay with me, guys, because we're going to go on to planning permission next, which is a massive element of HMOs that you need to know, so stay tuned for that. Things that you will need to submit if you want to get your HMO license. Now, I'm not going to cover everything on this video, guys, because quite frankly, we'd be here too long. But in this video, I'm going to cover some of the main things you're going to need to provide. You're going to need to provide a gas safety certificate. You're going to need a registered gas safety engineer to provide you with this certificate, guys. So it's called a gas safety certificate. One of the documents that you're going to need to provide is an EICR, Electrical Installation Condition Report. Now, guys, it's basically just a document to say that yes, the property is safe from an electrical perspective. Other things you're going to need to provide is a floor plan. So to get a floor plan done, it can be very cheap. Now, a lot of the time when you're buying the property, it will actually already have a floor plan, and what you can do is you can save it and you can annotate that floor plan. You can change it so it's relevant to the HMO layout that you've created. Because oftentimes when you're making a HMO, you will change the layout of the property that you've purchased to make it into a HMO. So I do this all the time. Typical example is you take a dining room, you put in a partitioning corridor and you turn that dining room into a bedroom. That's just one example. Floor plan, easy to do, usually costs around £200. HMO licensing is not always required when you're doing HMOs. Some areas you can run a 4-bed HMO, sometimes even a 5-bed HMO, and it does not need a HMO license, guys. Each area is completely different. Some areas, if you have 3 unrelated tenants living in one property that are not classed as a household, so they're not like brother and sister, they're unrelated, then guess what? You still have to apply for a HMO license. How crazy is that? How crazy is that? 3 people. So guess what? You need to do your research. And when I say that, it's real simple, guys. You just need to contact the council, look online, look on their requirements. They don't want more HMOs in Nottingham. So they introduced something called Article 4, which I'm gonna come on to in a second. But that pretty much covers it for HMO licensing. Just keep in mind, any questions you've got, you go direct to the council, you don't delay, you work with the council, and remember, they are your friends, not your enemies. So I just want to give a massive shout out to Mortgage Style. If you guys need a mortgage broker, they're the best brokers in the whole of the UK. Check out the link in my description for their contact details. Honestly guys, they are the best. Next, we have planning permission. So planning permission for HMOs. Now, there's a thing called Article 4 direction, okay? Now, an Article 4 direction is basically a planning restriction that the councils put in place when they don't want any more HMOs in a specific area. So for example, I think it was around 2013, Nottingham put in an Article 4 direction in Nottingham city boundary, okay? So the whole of the Nottingham city boundary had an Article 4 direction put in place. Now what Article 4 means is it basically means that if you want to create a new HMO, then you need to apply for planning permission, but it's very likely to be rejected because they put in the Article 4 to kind of put people off from doing HMOs, because they'll only put it into a place where HMOs are very saturated in that area. So there's lots of HMOs in an area, the council might put it into play. In a lot of major cities, there is Article 4, which cover the whole city boundary. Now guys, you can have a very small Article 4 direction. It might cover a small town, anywhere. Okay, it can be anywhere in the UK. The most important thing you do is before you buy any property is to basically find out, is the property situated in an Article 4 area? Because if it is, then what it means is you need to apply for planning permission to turn it to a HMO if you do want to buy it. There's a few things to note here, okay? One thing is you can buy existing HMOs that are in Article 4 areas. Okay, so if it's already a HMO, you can buy it and you'll have no problems. However, there is a main important thing you need to remember if you're buying existing HMOs in Article 4 areas, and that is there's something called a Certificate of Lawfulness. Short for that is COL, Certificate of Lawfulness. So I'm going to refer to it as COL. If you're buying an existing HMO, you need to make sure that the property has got a COL document. It's basically a planning document which says, in the eyes of planning permission, yes, this property is a HMO. So if the property's got a COL, then you're good. You can go ahead and buy it. Now, what I've done in the past is I've found a really good HMO, existing HMO that I've really wanted to buy, and it didn't have the COL. So what I've done is I've applied for the COL, the Certificate of Lawfulness. I've got it approved. I've got the document from planning permission, and I've gone ahead and purchased the property, and I've had no problems doing that. But what happened to me very early on was I purchased the property. It didn't have a COL. It was an existing HMO in an Article 4 area. I just thought, yeah, it's an existing HMO, so I'll have no problems. Boy, was I wrong. I learned the hard way. I nearly lost a lot of money on that deal. But luckily, we applied for the COL and it got approved. Okay, so happy days. We can breathe. But don't make the same mistake as me, guys, because that could have gone absolutely left. And it only worked by the skin of my teeth. Okay, so that's something to learn, guys. If it's in Article 4, it's an existing HMO, make sure it's got the COL. Now, one thing I like to do, guys, and this is a bit of a strategy here, I like to buy outside of the Article 4 areas, but not like super far outside. I like to go just outside. So for Nottingham, for example, you've got the Article 4 area, it covers all of the Nottingham city boundary. It also covers certain areas as well, such as Easton. What I do is, guys, I go just outside. So I'm buying in areas like Mansfield, like Long Eaton, like Worksop, like Sutton and Ashfield. I'm going just outside of these areas, guys, and you know what that does for me? It gives me peace of mind, knowing that I do not need to apply for planning permission. Because let's face it, guys, when you apply for planning permission, number one, it's likely to be rejected if it's in Article 4, okay? Number two, it costs more money, and who wants to spend more money when they don't have to? Number three, it takes long. Planning permission, guys, can take absolutely ages. I don't want you guys to go through that. So listen to my advice, take notes. You're gonna need to write this down, guys. Write this down. Buy outside of the Article 4 areas, or buy existing HMOs that have got the COL and the license. So that's planning permission, and that's how to be the safest and most secure route, if you're quite risk averse like myself, is to buy outside of the Article 4 areas. Now what it means is, guys, that you can do up to a 6-person HMO with no planning permission. So you don't need to apply for planning permission if you're going up to 6-person HMO. So 6 rooms, 6 tenants. If you want to go to 7, then yes, you are going to need to apply for planning permission, which I sometimes do. I sometimes do big HMOs like 7 beds, 8 beds, etc. One thing I would say is the sweet spot for me, and what I recommend to you guys as well, keep it simple. Buy outside of the Article 4, go for a 5-bed, a 6-bed, make it really nice. Make sure you're working closely with HMO licensing, making sure that you're covered with whatever you're doing, guys. It's all about covering whatever you're doing. So my top tips for creating new HMOs. Number 1, make sure you are buying big properties. Now, what I see a lot of people doing is they're trying to force 5 bedrooms, 6 bedrooms into a very small terrace property. Guys, the reality of it is that the end result is not gonna be that good, guys. You want big rooms, so you need big properties. Now, also, I see a lot of people messing up by overspending on their HMOs, guys. So they'll go for super high-end, super luxury, and to be honest with you, a lot of the time the motivation is just all wrong. They're doing it for outside validation. They want people to like their photos on Instagram, and they want to get attention from people by making these properties look amazing. The truth is, guys, it's a business. All right, now, if you want to create an amazing HMO and overspend by £50,000, by all means do it. You'll definitely be doing the tenants a great service there. But if you're looking at it from a business point of view, do not overspend on your projects, guys. You need to make sure that you're looking at your end values and keeping it in mind, okay? So if you know a 6-bed HMO, they've only ever sold for 300K in that area, then don't buy something for 200 and spend 200K on a refurb, because now you're all in for 400K, guys. So you're in a loss, okay? Now, a lot of the time there's a ceiling price for how much rent you can actually charge. So even if you go en suite and you go crazy with a finish, it's gonna be very difficult for you actually to rent out those rooms, okay? But it all does depend, guys, on the area. So do your research on the area. Now that brings me to my 3rd tip, which is make sure you have done your research on the area that you're buying the property in. So say, for example, there's no Article 4, that's great, but it doesn't mean it's worth buying in that area, okay? I've bought one property, guys, before, and honestly, I kind of regretted buying it because of the area. When I went there initially on the viewing, it was great, it was no problems. When I've owned the property and come back to it, I'm seeing that it's literally in the hood. In the hood, in the ghetto, where it goes down. Man, it really was going down, okay? I was having little kids say to me, "What's he doing on my turf?" Excuse me? I'm a grown ass man, I'm 29. Some little baby saying that, like, "Oh, what's he doing on my turf?" But anyway, the point is I'm trying to make is, guys, is make sure you are doing your research and you've got a feel for the area. You want to drive around and at least feel safe. Another thing I would say is you make the money when you buy. So a big point I see people doing is they will find a property, they know it's going to work as a HMO, and they'll basically just pay whatever the seller wants for it because they're thinking, yep, HMO, cool. But reality is, guys, that you still want to get the property for the best possible price. All right, you don't want to overpay for any property, because the truth is you make the money when you buy. Now, a thing called ceilings. Ceiling is basically, it's very hard for you to push through a ceiling. So when it comes to HMOs, say if there's been lots of 6-bed HMOs that I've sold in a particular area, you want to look at the highest one of those, right? And you never want to be running your numbers based on a higher figure than that. Okay, so say the ceiling price is 300K for a 6-bed HMO, ones that I've sold. You never want to base your figures on like 400K. You want to base your figures on like 270. You want to be conservative, guys, because sometimes people can get lucky when they're selling a HMO. They might sell it to an investor from London that doesn't really know what they're doing, and they've just bought a HMO in Nottingham, for example. Look at the ceiling price and run your numbers based on that. My top tip, guys, is make sure that you don't bite off more than you can chew, because one thing I've done in the past is I've basically taken on a project, I've underquoted it in my own head. I've said, right, I'm gonna buy this house, I'm gonna spend 30K on it, but in reality I needed to spend 40K or 42, 43K. And what it's done is it's left me in a financial position where I couldn't afford to finish the project. And then I had to start scraping money together and really just trying to finish the project, which is never a nice feeling. Have a contingency budget of around 10 or 15%. So when you are quoting your refurbs, if you go and get quotes and it's coming back much higher, then at least you've got some leeway there and you've budgeted correctly. So that's one thing I'd say. Now guys, today's video is only to scratch the surface on HMOs. One thing I would say is, guys, if you do want further training and mentorship from myself, all you need to do is head over to Instagram and drop me the word mentor. Message me the word mentor and I'll reach back out to you and I'll give you more information on what it looks like working with myself and having me as your mentor. If you don't have Instagram, you can book a call with me using this link in the description of this video. And I would love to train you up and be your mentor and guide you to getting your first HMO deal. So, hope you've enjoyed this video. Remember to like, comment and subscribe and stay tuned for next week's vid. See you all very soon.